Kia ora and welcome back to the HRPI. I'm Marie Tovio, Registered Private Investigator and Employment Relations Specialist in New Zealand. Today's case is the case of the conflicted manager, identifying and managing conflicts of interest. A conflict of interest exists when personal interests, relationships, or other activities could influence or could reasonably be seen to influence how someone does their job. Expectations are usually set out in your Code of Conduct and employment agreements, and in New Zealand, the Employment Relations Act good faith obligations underpin the need for transparency and fair decision making. An interest isn't just financial. It can be a relationship, a side business, gifts or hospitality, or anything that could call impartiality into question. Common examples include supervising a family member or close friend, recommending a spouse's company, secondary employment that competes, or accepting gifts or hospitality that could bias judgment. The good news: a conflict of interest isn't automatically a wrongdoing. The real risk is failing to declare it or not managing it properly once it's declared. So let's look at the process that employers should follow. Firstly, require staff to disclose actual, potential or perceived conflicts early, ideally in writing in employment agreements and a policy. Second, assess the information, consider relevant points such as the employee's decision-making authority, financial or personal interest, frequency of interaction, and reputational risk. 3. Consider how best to manage any potential conflict with the employee. For example, you might be able to separate duties, set boundaries, reassign tasks, or step the person out of decisions relevant to the conflict that they have. 4. Document the plan and your discussion. Ensure the employee knows they must update you if anything changes, and review the plan if there is a change. Let's look at an example of where this is handled appropriately. A team leader's partner applies for a role which doesn't report to them. The team leader discloses it to their manager, they are excluded from the recruitment process, and decisions are made independently. They discuss any areas of the work where the two may have contact or work together going forward, and how that will be handled. The agreed approach is documented. Now let's look at an example where it wasn't handled so well. A project manager chooses to hide a spouse's subcontract, knowing the organisation's policy about potential conflicts of interest. When this is discovered, trust erodes between them and the organisation, and ultimately disciplinary action follows, not because the project manager's work was poor, but because disclosure obligations were ignored. Key takeaways. Perception matters. Early disclosure protects everyone, and written management plans reduce risk. If the conflict touches recruitment, procurement, or any decision where someone could allege bias, that's the point to get advice early. I can assist with conflict of interest employment agreement clauses or policy templates, and with any situations where a conflict may exist. The information in this podcast is provided as a general overview of key employment topics in New Zealand and does not replace tailored advice. Every situation is different, and the appropriate steps can vary depending on the specific circumstances. If you're unsure about how to proceed in your workplace, I encourage you to seek advice and support. Feel free to get in touch with me directly. And if you do need to do a disciplinary process, please check my podcast on that topic. And that's today's case wrapped up. Facts checked, process followed, and the outcome far less messy than it could have been. Mā te wā.